Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 10. I can't believe we're on episode 10 already of the Twisted Siblings podcast. Welcome back. We're back. Sorry that we had different guests last week, although I think they did a great job. Did you listen to it, Kelly?
Yeah, and I think some of the comments that we've seen, a lot of people liked it, didn't they?
Yes, they did like it. So yeah, I'm really glad you like it, and let us know if you want that to become like a regular thing. Maybe once a month they could kind of fill in for us, because I do think they bring a bit of a different feel to us, and I really enjoyed listening to it. It's nice. So yeah, we're back. Kelly is feeling better. As we've previously said, she is a midwife, so she works in a hospital. Obviously hospitals, you do pick up some things, and she works a lot of hours, so we just decided that we'd have to give that one a miss. So luckily we had two people to fill in for us. So that being said, because we skipped mine last week, I'm actually going to be doing mine today still, so that I'm not skipping a week. So I'm just going to get into it. Have we got anything else? I don't think there's anything else to really catch up on, is there?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. So today we're going to delve into the shocking case of Denise Amber Lee. It's a story of an innocent young woman who was abducted, sending shockwaves through her community. So we're going to explore from start to finish everything that we know. So Denise Amber Lee was a vibrant 21-year-old living in sunny Florida with her husband, Nathan, and their two young children. Denise and Nathan began dating in the senior year of high school. They were the definition of opposites attract. Denise was a math whiz and self-proclaimed bookworm, and Nathan was a football jock who loved to socialise and crack jokes. Their whirlwind romance moved fast, and soon the two were married, and along with that came two little boys, Noah and Adam. The family of four settled in Northport, Florida, where Nathan worked 3 jobs to support his family, something that he didn't mind doing. Their financial situation wasn't the best, but it didn't matter to them. They were happy. All they wanted was to live happily, raise their children, and enjoy life. Which brings us to when everything kind of came crashing down. Thursday, January the 17th, 2008, which was a day that would change their life forever. Denise was at home taking care of their 2 children, 2-year-old little Noah and 6-month-old Adam, while Nathan was at work. A day like any other day, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing to report. Although Denise had called Nathan at work a few times, however, this wasn't unusual for the couple. They would normally speak a few times a day to check in on how their day was, how the kids were, how work was, the usual chit-chat. Denise had mentioned that the weather was quite stuffy, so Nathan had suggested opening the windows. On the way home, as Nathan normally would, he called Denise and there was no answer. But he didn't think anything of it. She was probably busy. She had 2 small kids at home, so he tried to ring again and again. And after 8 calls, he did begin to worry. When he finally arrives home, he rushes in as he is anxious that something's wrong, because he still hadn't heard back in the 25 minutes it took him to get home. When he entered the house, his 2 children were there alone. Denise was nowhere to be seen, although he could find Denise's keys and phone. Nathan called 911 immediately, and then straight after he made a call to Denise's dad, Rick. I'm going to say, how would you pronounce it, Kelly? Goff. Goff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goff. As he was a police officer. So, obviously, after calls were made to the police, then it was all over the news. It all happened quite quickly. People were searching for her quite quickly. There was helicopters out, the whole lot, because obviously they had someone in the family as well that was part of the police. It all escalated quite quickly. So the news reporter, there was breaking news. A young mother, Denise Amber Lee, had gone missing from her home. Law enforcement officials had launched an extensive search, urging the public for any information that could lead to her safe return. As the news spread, an all-out effort was made to locate Denise. The investigation revealed that on the day of her abduction, Denise had been home alone with her 2 children, A neighbour had noticed a suspicious vehicle parked nearby, but it wasn't until later that the significance of that sighting would become clear. The neighbour said she saw a strange van parked just down the street. It was idling and the driver was watching Denise's house. Something just didn't feel right. They said, "I wish I'd done something more." She said that when she looked 10 minutes later, the van was gone. At 6:14 p.m, a second call was made to 911. It was Denise. The operator soon realised that she was trying to give as much information as possible while speaking with the kidnapper, so not to raise suspicion. She gave the 911 operator her name, the street name she lived on, and the make of her kidnapper's car. 7 minutes into the call, and after pleading with the kidnapper 17 times to let her go, Denise's kidnapper realises she's on the phone and the line went dead.
Oh,
I know.
so close.
I know. And how brave must you be to make that call? Like, I don't think I'd move an inch if I was in that situation. Like,
No.
let alone try steal their phone.
And quick thinking as well, to like think maybe you can't fight them off, but you can give the police some information of what's going on.
Yeah. So the police now had more information than they had before. However, the call that Denise had made was from the kidnapper's phone, which was a burner phone. So they were unable to trace it, but were able to find out who it belonged to, which was a man named Michael Lee King. Michael King was a 36-year-old man who was unemployed and lived not too far away from Denise and Nathan. He was divorced and had a 12-year-old child. That's kind of what we know about him, not too much. When I was looking online, it doesn't go too much into him or like his childhood. So that's kind of the basis. There were at least 4 other calls. One, of course, was from her distraught husband, and 3 were from eyewitnesses. One witness gave the local sheriff's department an exact location of the crime happening right before her eyes. The eyewitness believed it was a child abduction due to the noises heard. She stayed on the phone for more than 9 minutes, identifying cross streets as she continued driving. Despite the fact that as many as 4 patrol cars were within a mile of the car in which Denise was fighting for her life, due to a shift change in the call centre, no one was dispatched. Both officers were suspended without pay. Both officers that were involved in this shift change that should have obviously picked it up. However, the sheriff's office defended their decision to not fire the officers as a missed opportunity, which was an especially difficult situation for Denise's dad, knowing that the mistake of someone in the department he worked for was responsible for such a fatal mistake. That would be so hard, wouldn't it?
Just awful. Like, you hear about so many cases where they have no leads at all, but how many leads have they had here now? Witnesses and people telling them the streets that they were driving down and the make of the car and like literally everything
all in real
handed to them
time
in
as
a
well.
plate. Yeah, and still.
Yeah, normally they're working on a situation that's kind of happened, whereas this is people reporting it in real time, where if they acted in real time, the outcome could have been so different. And we do touch on that, but I just think...
I don't understand how the shift change was an issue either. Like, surely if that's the sort of job that you're in, if something like that is happening, then you're not going to end your shift at the time that you're supposed to.
Right? Like, you're not on the phone and it's 5 p.m. and you're like, I'm done, sorry, you're going to have to go. Like, if you're on a call or if you're dealing with a situation, do you not see it through till the end?
Yeah, like, sorry, there's a murder going on, but could you just pause that for 5 minutes while we change shift?
Yeah, because I'm about to go home, so... Yeah, I mean, you would think there are rules like that, and I do go on to tell you a little bit more, but I think since this situation, they have kind of come down on it a little bit more. But, I mean, we do hear these stories all the time about... I know the police do great work, but in a lot of these cases, there are so many missed opportunities where it could have been better and lives could have been saved.
Yeah.
When they don't believe people or when they don't when someone's reported missing and
That's
they're like, no,
one.
wait.
Just wait 24 hours.
And then you're like 24, 48 hours behind what you should be. And they're the most crucial moments. But, yeah. So at 9:15 p.m, a police officer pulled Michael over and immediately arrested him. The officer that pulled him over and pulled him over, he spotted a muddy shovel in the back where the eyewitness had previously reported that he was using his hand to push something or someone down, and where she had heard what she thought was a child. Just 2 days after Denise's disappearance, on January 19th, she was discovered naked, found buried in a shallow grave in a muddy field. One of the witnesses who had previously called 911, Jane Kowalski, I'm going to say, saw Michael's photo on the news the next day and recognised him as the man in the green Camaro. She phoned the authorities, identifying herself as one of the 911 callers regarding Denise's kidnapping, and asked if they needed any more information or if she could help in any way. To her surprise, the authorities had no idea who she was. As we discussed previously on the episode, this is where the fatal mistake was made, as when Jane called in, she was just 5 miles from where the body was discovered, meaning that if this had been followed up, Denise may still be alive today. It was then later discovered that there was a deputy stationed at the exact road Michael turned onto when Jane was on the phone to 911. Had this call had been reported, Denise's life most definitely would likely have been saved, because at this point she was alive, because she'd just been seen.
That's so horrible.
So he literally would have
drove
probably past one of the police officers. The police officer would have sirened, pulled him over there and then, because he would have recognised the car, and it would have been, we wouldn't be telling the story today.
No, it's heartbreaking.
It's so this is something I'm sure that the family struggle with every single day. This is such an awful tragedy, but I think it just makes it harder, especially the dad, and the fact that he works in this department. Like, how do you ever forgive someone that made such a fatal error in your daughter?
Quite possibly the police officers as well, to be fair, because I'm sure none of them go into that job not wanting to do a good job.
Of course.
And so it probably haunts them knowing that they could have done something. But
100%. If you know that your actions could have changed a situation that's so horrible, then that would live with you for the rest of your life. I don't know if you'd ever get over it, because like you say, you go into police work wanting to help, and obviously their intention wasn't to do this, it was just an oversight, but something that you can't afford to do, I don't think, when you're a police officer.
No.
So Michael King was charged with first-degree murder, sexual battery and kidnapping. He pled not guilty. Michael's defence attorney argued that he had suffered a traumatic sledding accident as a child, which had resulted in brain damage, and that his IQ was only 71. So that's like going back to what we've previously said in other episodes about, you've got the serial, I know this, he's not classed as serial killer, but you've got like the serial killer triad, which are things that you look out for when they're young. And then you've got the head trauma, which there are like some indications and studies that head trauma can lead to
like behaviour changes that are seen in killers.
Yeah, so from doing some research, is there are actually a few killers we may recognise that have previously suffered a head trauma, some of which have had like a bad upbringing. So it's hard to say whether that contributed, the head trauma, or both. Some of them haven't. So some of them that you may recognise: Richard Ramirez, Peter Sutcliffe, Fred
really?
West, and John Wayne Gacy. All suffered head injuries that were quite severe. But again, I don't know on each of them, but I think at least Richard Ramirez, he had a bad upbringing. So it could be the same for all of them. So they could have just had both, and it could have just been worse, which is why we know their name now.
Yeah.
Michael told authorities that he had kidnapped and blindfolded Denise, He denied any wrongdoing. Several witnesses, including Jane and Michael's cousin Harold, testified against him. I didn't touch too much on Harold, but Michael had paid him a visit previously, and his cousin did sense something was wrong, so he did end up ringing 911 as well. There was a lot of evidence against Michael. Denise's DNA was found inside his home and vehicle. Michael's semen and Denise's blood were found on the duct tape he had used to bind her wrists together. Denise's shorts were found in the woods near where he had buried, also contained Michael's semen. So it was kind of like, although he was denying it, there's not really any way around it. We know you did it. The medical examiner on the case testified that Denise had been violently and brutally raped. Her body had several defensive wounds, and there was bruising on her wrist from being bound. She had been shot at point-blank range above her left eyebrow, which had caused her eye to explode.
Oh, gosh.
Blood was found in Denise's lung, signifying that she was still breathing after she was shot in the head. It's just awful.
Yeah.
I probably should have put a disclaimer at the beginning of this because that's quite horrific. So, ripped from her family far too young, from the comfort of her own home, where she was raising her family. It's just such a sad story, but she was such a brave lady, and she put up such an amazing fight. The fact that there was defensive wounds on her, she had called 911 herself because she had taken his phone, and she had the
like wherewithal.
Yeah, she had also thought to sit there and have a conversation and give the police as much information she could without trying to raise suspicion to her abductor, which is really clever and something that I don't know if I would do in that kind of situation, because she's probably, the adrenaline is pumping, she's in shock, like you wouldn't know what was going on, and you never know how you're going to act if anything like that ever happened. And just amazing that she managed to do that.
Yeah, because I'm
she
sure
managed
that
to get them a lot of information.
It might not have helped her be saved, but I'm sure that evidence helped with getting him convicted.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, when you read stuff like this, like, that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, if there was ever, if someone... I've listened to so many podcasts where I've picked up so many tips that if anything bad ever happened to me, like not even necessarily like a kidnapping or anything like that, but something bad, like there are so many tips that you pick up on that you think I wouldn't have thought of that if we didn't speak about it.
Definitely scratch people.
Yes.
So it's underneath
your
your
DNA.
fingernails. Yeah.
100%. And just little things like I'm always sharing my location now with Connor. So, like, wherever I go, he knows, because he can see me. So, if he doesn't get a hold of me, he'll know where I am. Just little things like that, just to be so aware of your surroundings. And, like, because we hear these things all the time and you never think it's going to be you. And I just think that is quite a naive way to live. I mean, I know most of these cases are in America, but stuff like this happens, like, in the UK as well.
And everybody that it does happen to always says as well, we didn't think it would happen to us. Like, nobody thinks it will happen to them, but it happens to some people. So, statistically.
Yeah, so I think that's, again, why I love listening to these kind of podcasts, is because you do pick up on so many things that, like, people do or have done, or tips, and you think, that's actually a really good idea. So there is actually a memorial page for Denise where the family have wrote some lovely words about what a loving young mum and wife she was. The family wrote, "It is in memory of Denise and the tragedy that could have been prevented this foundation is formed." So they've actually formed the Denise Amber Lee Foundation. Was founded by Denise's loving husband, Nathan, who sought changes to a 911 system that failed her that day. The foundation is here so that no other person, family or community has to endure the pure hell of a similar event, and that no other children have to endure a lifetime without the comfort and guidance of their loving mother. So yeah, there's actually a foundation in her memory now to hopefully stop anything from happening like this again, because she was failed, and unfortunately we are telling her tale because it's a sad one. So that is the story, and she was a very brave woman.
She was.
And I like the fact that I think I've touched more on her because she was a fighter than him, because he was a pig.
Yeah. Doesn't deserve to be told about.
No, absolutely not. We give these people too much time, which is why I do like to put a tiny little spin on most of them, where we are giving more information and memory to the victim, because that's who deserves the airtime. But obviously, true crime wouldn't be true crime without these horrible people. So yes, anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We will be resuming as normal. Next week it will be Kelly. We come on to Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your podcast at 7 a.m. every Monday. Please, please, please leave us a 5-star review. We'll love you forever. It really does help, and we love to see them. You can find us on Instagram at the Twisted Siblings Podcast, and you can send us any messages if there's a case that you might want us to look into. And then you can also see any updates. We do like little teasers coming up to the episode. So yeah, we appreciate each and every single one of your listens, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.